Now we have the Lando series.
Lando.
And this is one of those ones that I have to admit totally surprised me.
Yeah, this one really caught me off guard.
Yeah, this one came out of nowhere. And because the thing is, and if I remember correctly, they didn't even really announce who was going to be playing them. Like, they didn't go, is it going to be Donald, which I mean, it would almost have to be Donald Glover at this point. Because, I mean, what are you going to do with Billy Dee Williams?
I mean, granted, true, he's
guy's
not,
like 80-something, and,
he's not really walking the best.
He's not walking the best, and it's not, the most you can do is, it was similar to what they were going to try to do for Rise of Skywalker. Again, this is a rumor. This wasn't anything that was actually going to happen, but somebody was all like, what if Lando was, I remember back when, and they almost did like a flashback thing. So you could actually have Billy Dee Williams kind of like in that current time period reflecting on his past adventures, and then it comes up that way.
Have a Family Guy moment, basically.
Well, I mean, this is actually a legitimate technique. I mean, I've seen this done in a bunch of series where you have like the guy, he's older and he's kind of telling the story. They've done a lot of gangster movies like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just we haven't seen that in Star Wars yet. So some people might feel like that's not really Star Wars, but
Well, I mean, on TV though, that ship has kind of sailed, though, don't you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you could do that. I mean, now the cool thing about Lando, my thing is, I'm wondering like what time period they're kind of covering.
Well, yeah,
because you could do, let's just say, is this before he meets Han or is this after he meets Han?
Oh,
like what is he like? What is he doing? Like, is this before he meets? You know what I mean? Like before the Solo movie happens, or is this after? Like, okay, Han's gone off to kind of work with Jabba on Tatooine, and now Lando's going back. Is this where we see him acquire Cloud City or start to get into that section of his life?
I don't know if that would actually be the most compelling. I mean, I could see where it would be. That's one of the reasons why I think I was so surprised by this announcement.
That's my point.
I'm like, why are they? I mean, again, I thought that the way that Donald Glover played the part, that hands down.
Oh yeah, and we knew that before they even cast him. We said like if they were to cast someone to play Lando, it should be Donald Glover.
Oh yeah, that's true. That was another like a Rosario Dawson moment where we called that. And again, once you actually saw it on the screen, you're like,
of course,
man, I want to see more of the continuing adventures of Lando. So they could do that.
Right.
Here's a question.
Okay.
This is all for all you guys. Do you think with this Lando series, especially if Donald Glover's in it, do you think they're going to bring Alden Ehrenreich in as Han Solo? Because remember, they were signed on for like a trilogy or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely would think so. The only problem with that is, so if we go back to Empire, Han makes a statement and said, well, I'm sure he's forgotten about that. And he was talking about, we don't, I mean, we're thinking about the Sabbat. We're thinking about the Sabbat game that they played and how he lost the Falcon. But is that really what that was?
I don't think
so. Now you could make a story that's like, okay, he and Lando are kind of doing some stuff here and there, or he pops up in the Lando series and, they go on adventures or something like that. And then maybe there's something else that happens. And then he's just like, all right, I don't ever want to see you again, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or, this has to take place before he meets Han.
They could actually do it before he meets Han because obviously he had a pretty storied life. Mm-hmm. Kira knew who he was.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she was basically saying, okay, he's like this, he's like that. He obviously had a reputation. So he's been doing some stuff before, Han came into the picture. But that said, I think you have to look at it from, and I hesitate to say this only because I know how it sounds. My initial reaction is, but would anybody care?
Well, here's the other piece that you could do. You could have him set in the Rebels era. Because remember he did pop up in Rebels and he helped them out.
Yeah.
during that period of time. So he was always, he's already kind of, established by
Well,
that
that's
point.
what I think. If I had to do it, I would think the most interesting time to set Lando would be between, which, I mean, I guess Solo falls into this, but between episodes 3 and 4, somewhere in there. Because that's where the meat of the story is going to hit. Because you have to sort of bump it up against when we see him in The Empire Strikes Back. Because you bring up somewhat of a good point, too, is the fact that you got, again, 2 frame of references, just like what we were talking about before with Ahsoka, with Luke. You have the Lando that we meet in Solo, and then you have the Lando that we meet in The Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
These are 2 key points in Lando's life. So what happened in between that?
Exactly.
And I think that you had to cover that. And another thing that you brought up that I hadn't really thought about, but it's true, and it's something that I think about every time I see The Empire Strikes Back. It was brilliant the way that Harrison Ford and Billy Dee Williams played it, because you could feel there was some history there. Like,
the tension, yep.
The whole time, we're being introduced to this new character, but we're sitting there like, what happened between you guys, man? Because
I mean, you knew it was like, okay, just to recant, they're in the Falcon, they're on their way to Cloud City, and Han brings up like, oh, Lando. He's like, well, the Lando system, he's not a system, it's a man, car player, smuggler, scoundrel, you'll like him, and Chewie is, growling and grunting, and Han makes the reference like, well, I'm sure he's forgotten about that. So it's just kind of like, well, what the heck was that?
Right.
And then, of course, once they land, of course, they're having trouble landing. So then once he does land, he leans over to Chewie. He's like, hey, man, this might go south, so just stay sharp. So
keep your eyes open, huh?
Yeah. So it's like you kind of have this whole tension once again building. And then the way Lando walks up to him, and he's just like, you slimy, no good. He's just like going off. You got a lot of guts after what you pulled. And then you're like, okay, once again, is that the Sabacc game that we see at the end of Solo? Or is it something else? But then it's like, well, what have you done with my ship? So it's kind of like, okay, is this about the ship or is this about something else? I also think that I've always often noticed that, Lando kept hitting on Leia the whole time. And it's like, she's clearly with Han, like, dude. So it's just like, is Lando trying to get him back for something? Like, is he really like, all right, I'll take his girl from him,
Well, I do wonder this. I wonder what his relationship to Kira was, because Kira knew Lando fairly well. But, and obviously Han knew her. So it makes me wonder, like, how did Lando and Kira meet? I mean, obviously, she's running around for Crimson Dawn and all this stuff, but there's stuff there. And it's like, this is why I think it would make the most sense to set it maybe just either before or after Solo. I'll even tighten up the timeline a little bit. I'm going to say before or after Solo, because I really think that what you could do is, in a way, and we said this when we were speculating, is there going to be a Solo 2 and all this other stuff? You could actually sequelize Solo in a TV series. You could do that, and you can bring back these characters that we really wanted to see. Because, I mean, I don't know about, well, I do know about you because we talked about this, but I don't know about all of you. But I'm like, as soon as I was seeing the end of Solo, that's when I got really excited about the movie, to be honest, because you find out that Kira's working for, Crimson Dawn. You find out Darth Maul is in charge of Crimson Dawn. You have this really kind of cool but uncomfortable dynamic between Lando and Han. I wanted to see Solo 2 way more than I wanted to see Solo.
Right.
I was invested in this, and I just think that they are missing an opportunity if they don't do that. Now, Ronaldo says, I think it will definitely be Donald Glover, and I think we'll see other Solo characters considering the acceptance that the movie has been getting lately. And he's right. I mean, look, there's been Make Solo 2 happen hashtags. There's been a lot of love for Solo. And let's not forget that it was basically considered a box office bomb, but it still did like 500 million or something. I mean, sure, compared to other Star Wars films, it didn't do as well, but at the same time, nobody really hated it. They were just basically like, well, I mean, it was cool, it was fun.
Right, and it didn't
We just didn't need it, that's all.
Not only that, but you didn't advertise it properly, and that was the biggest thing. I don't think a lot of people even
Well, I'm talking
knew.
about when people saw it, but you're right. Yeah, that's probably why it actually was a box office failure, to be honest.
Right.
But, I mean, the Lando series was what actually really intrigued me. I think that was one of them. I'm probably going to change my mind throughout this whole thing. Like, nope, this is the one that was. But so far, the Lando series was the one, to me, that came the most out of left field. Because we'd been hearing some rumors and grumblings about the other ones. I just didn't know if they were really in production or not, whether they were spec scripts, whether, I mean, they could have been in a lot of stages of development or something. But the Lando series, like, who even knew that was coming out? Watch, somebody will probably link in the comments, like, it'll be Jason, too. He'll write, like, an entire novel's worth of a comment talking about, well, here's where, it was.
And then you're like, oh, all right.
Yeah, be like, okay, I'll just like that comment and move on. But, yeah, I mean, I don't remember anything. I remember they were toying with the idea that this is where they could go, but I don't recall anything saying, like, yeah, we're developing a Lando series or something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it just caught me out of left field. I'm excited to see where this goes, though.
Oh, yeah.
Because I really want to know, like, what time period, and then.
Well, when's it coming out? Did they say?
Nope.
Oh, this is one of the ones. Yeah, it figures. Some of the ones I noticed in this whole announcement, they would give some definitive. Well, some of them they would almost have
years. Like,
yeah, they would at least have. If they didn't have dates, they had years. Like, okay, expect this in 2022 or expect this whenever. But this one is just like, yeah, we're coming out with Lando. Now, here's the question then. If they're announcing it now, do you think it's that far off? Like, what's the latest you think we're going to start seeing some of this stuff come out?
The latest?
Yeah, the latest.
I'll probably say like 2024.
You really think that? It almost sounds like I'm about to. But no, I mean, do you really think that they would do that, though? Because why would they announce? Well,
I mean, I think you announce some things just because. So, like we said earlier, this is, I think what they're giving us right now is time. I think they're biding themselves some time for the films as they kind of fine tune those and figure out where they
want to go.
Where they really want to go. Yet we can tell these stories right here. This is kind of like the comic book realm, if like a visual comic book, if you will. So we're giving you like these short little series that you can kind of follow that tell some great stories with characters that you're already familiar with and some you're not. And then that way this will kind of, keep you engaged, keep your, your appetite whet for Star Wars while we're still working on the big entrees.
While we're trying to repair the entire film series.
Exactly.
Or we're trying to fix the mess we created. Here's some series that are actually good that will make you love Star Wars again. And then we promise we'll work on fixing everything.
Exactly. And honestly, that's what I think they're doing. And it's smart. I mean, I think, especially when you have people like Filoni and Favreau who this is like a gold mine for them.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just like, okay, cool. I get to play in this sandbox all day long. And they pretty much own it. I mean, there's like everything is pretty much centered around them. And they're kind of finding the directors. They're finding the people. And they're kind of just, helping, curate the scripts and things like that. But I think that's where we're going with this. And then, like I said, we'll start figuring out some of the bigger things, like the films will kind of be sandwiched in between these series. And then also, I think, with, like they said, Andor just started filming 3 weeks ago, and they had a cool scissor reel on that where, like, Diego Luna's actually kind of taking you through the set, and they're putting that same type of care like they did Mandalorian. But see, now I think they can do with this whole video game engine stuff that they've been doing, over there. I think they can spit out a lot of things a lot faster. Man, sure, you still got to build some set pieces and things like that, but they're still bringing that realistic Star Wars. And I think they finally decided, like, okay, we're not going to do everything green screen. We definitely have
yeah.
to give people that Star Wars feeling, because that's what makes Star Wars, first of all. And I think when you started creating these shows, okay, we have The Mandalorian. Season 1, major success. Season 2, we're pretty much on the same path. It's even taking it up a notch. So now we have to see, like, okay, what's the next thing that's going to come out of this? And if we get, okay, The Bad Batch, that's already done. That's coming out in January. We got books that's coming out at the end of January. So once again, that'll tide us over for a little bit.
Well, and the other thing that you got to look at too is that I'm sure COVID played a role in all this stuff.
Oh, totally.
So I mean, I think that maybe we're getting all this stuff piled up because it's not as spread out. They've been working on it. I mean, some of the timelines are affected. Maybe some of this stuff would have come out even sooner. So your 2024 timeline could be correct. Now, Ronaldo says, the only way I see Billy Dee popping up is if he tells his story when he was young through flashbacks to Donald Glover. Yeah, I mean, that's where I think that would be the best. I mean, there are other scenarios where he could literally be the star of the show, but I do think it would be stretching it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think it would be a good idea. Oh, and he says, by the way, Casino Royale, License to Kill, and Goldfinger are my top 3 Bond movies.
Which Casino Royale, though?
Yeah, so I'm going to guess
the Daniel
it's
Craig.
Not the Peter Sellers one. I mean, Watcher's like, no, it is the Peter. But, okay, that's good. Those are your top 3. But which one should I watch next?
I'm going to say Thunderball.
You're going to say Thunderball. Well, wait. Like Thunderball or Never Say Never Again?
Thunderball.
Man, you know what? I forgot about Thunderball.
That's why you should watch it.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Yeah, no, maybe I will. Well, let's see what Ronaldo says. Okay, well, here's what else he says. According to what I investigated in 5 seconds, good man, Rogue Squadron will be released December 25th, 2023, and Andor in 2022. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi will begin filming in March of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that probably puts Kenobi around a 2022, maybe early 2023. So it's going to be interesting. Wow, like the end, like Christmas of... Well, no, that makes sense because that's the movie.
Yeah,
that's the actual movie.
Yeah, that's the movie.
So that makes sense. Which is weird. It's coming out on Christmas. You would think that if they were following their old timeline, it'd be December 18th, but... Mm-hmm. Then again, they probably don't want to follow their old anything. It's like, you know what? I'm surprised they didn't put out in May, actually. Just like, man, people love Star Wars when it was released in May.
Yep.
But then they were making like $2 billion when they did it in December. So, there is that. But I don't know. I mean, this is really kind of a tough call because on one hand, what I think would have been smarter, and again, I don't want to be one of those Star Wars fans that no matter what they do, you always find something to complain about. But I'm going to complain about one little thing. I wish that they had a little bit more stuff in the can that they were ready to release, like in 2021.
Right.
If they were going to make this huge announcement. Again, I get it. Yes, you're giving us basically... Because if they did say that, then we would turn around and say... Well, yeah, that takes care of 2021, but what are they going to be doing beyond that? So now they're giving us a little bit of a picture to right through 2023.
And I think also you brought up the point of COVID, because even watching the whole Cassian Andor thing, just watching everybody move around with masks on, that's, the thing is you kind of have to account for that because let's just say, prayerfully not, but let's just say, like, all right, 2 of the members of the setup, the set crew, comes down with this stupid thing, and now they got to shut down production because, you got to quarantine. Hey, did you come in contact? Things have to get shut. You have all these parameters now.
That's when you just make that Stormtrooper series.
So
it's like, look, Stormtroopers and bounty hunters coming in 2021. It's like everybody's wearing masks basically. It'd be great,
right? Or that's when you just go animate it. But
yeah, there you go. Well, they're right.
Not me. I get you. So But see, I think that's why they space things out, and the reason why they haven't given us like concrete dates is because you have this whole pandemic that's going around, and you can't necessarily guarantee like you were able to do a year or so ago. You know,
Yeah,
where you
that's
can
true.
say
They
like,
don't know.
Yeah, so you kind of just have to kind of play it by ear. I mean, I'm just thankful they're still even shooting, honestly, right now.
Well, and again, I mean, you would have to be really, really just totally negative if you're going to take this and start complaining about stuff. I mean, they're giving us way more than anybody expected on this thing. But it does make you wonder, though, because the biggest issue about doing something like this is that they risk setting people up for disappointment. That's the only thing that...
Right.
Even though, again, it looks like they're making all the right moves. So from that standpoint... You know, I'm cool with it.
My thing is just follow through with all this. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, that's
the big thing.
Exactly. That's another thing they have to do. They have to follow through. But, you know, what about you guys? What are you thinking when it comes to Lando? Were you surprised by this series? Did you somehow expect it? Because, you know, there's a lot of people that have guessed that this thing was coming out. Or at least at some point. You know, I've heard rumblings about a Lando series in the past. I just haven't heard anything lately. But definitely let us know what you guys are thinking about this in the comment section below. You can still, of course, chat with us live. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. It's kind of like Daryl said earlier. Hit everything except the dislike button. That's what we want because that helps our channel.
All right.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.